let's go to Sean Spicer. He was Donald Trump's first spokesman as president. He's been covering this bizarre election race for us on this show, The Bolt Report, all this year. Very glad to have him, particularly so late at night. Sean, how are you feeling?
I'm exhausted physically, but I am emotionally so excited, Andrew. It is 3:10 a.m. here on the East Coast. Donald Trump just wrapped up that speech that you guys saw. It was funny because I was thinking as he was speaking, in 2016, it's almost the exact same time. He took the stage around 2:50 a.m. In New York at that small reception at the Midtown Hilton in Manhattan. And here we are again, much bigger crowd down there in Palm Beach, but a lot more excited and a bigger win. You know, I had this pegged at 306 to 312 electoral votes. I think we might even exceed that. This is going to be a big night for Donald Trump for the Republican ticket. And I couldn't be more excited for the country.
Yeah, when you tipped to me that 312, I thought you were getting a little overexcited, but it seems, if anything, you know, just underestimated.
I know, but the thing that's interesting, Andrew, and you commented at the beginning of your monologue there, we were lied. Because I don't just pull this stuff out of air. When you and I spoke about this over weeks, remember initially I was concerned about Nevada, and then I saw the data move and I said, hey, here's why I'm moving Nevada into the Trump column. It was all based on data, right? I didn't just pull it out of air and say, God, I'm a Trump supporter and I want him to win, so I'm going to pick a number out of the air. And the media ignored that. They lied to the American people over and over again by convincing us that, you know, that he couldn't win, that the coalition that he was putting together was useless, that his ground game was horrible. They just didn't want to do that. Panel after panel, show after show, refuses to allow the American people to see that there are people out there that support Donald Trump and these policies. But they want to pretend that it doesn't exist, that it's some kind of zoo animal that you go off and pet sometime. The American people spoke loud and clear tonight. Not only did Donald Trump win, but Kamala Harris got shellacked, right? And in key constituencies that's supposed to support the Democratic Party walked away from her. Black men in a lot of urban areas didn't perform as well. You look at not just the battleground states, Andrew, but states that are reliably blue. My home state of Rhode Island, unbelievable. It was 53%. New Jersey, 52, 53. I haven't looked. Iowa, they told us for the last few days that Kamala Harris was up 3 points, and they paraded around this Des Moines Register poll saying that women were breaking, you know, for her, and this was amazing. Donald Trump won Iowa by 14 points tonight, 6 points more than he won in 2020. The media wanted to parade around that she was up 3 points. They wanted to create, you know, suppress the vote. This was an embarrassment. And I think they're going to wake up tomorrow and forget how complicit they were in what happened tonight. Most Americans found what the media did tonight sickening. And for those people who read the New York Times or the Washington Post or Politico or CNN or the NBC News here in the States, you know, at some point you've got to understand that they're not telling you the truth, and you need to find alternative sources to get your information.
Oh, I think that's a huge story in this result. And I've got to say, you know, even our own ABC devoted, I think, about a 10-minute interview this morning with the pollster who did that Iowa poll. Oh, Donald Trump's going to lose Iowa by 3 points or whatever it was. And as you say, he romped it in. They're picking up any little hint to try to build up the idea that she had momentum. It's just extraordinary. But Sean, this is a massive victory for Trump, of course. For the Democrats, I wonder whether, this should really cause an explosion in that party, because those Democrat power brokers, they forced out Joe Biden as their candidate when he imploded in his debate with Donald Trump. They then forced Harris onto the party as their candidate without even a vote of any delegates, even though she'd been one of the most unpopular vice presidents in recent history. And they knew she was no good, which is why they hid her from the media for almost the entire campaign, particularly not one press conference. There, it's going to be a lot of finger pointing there.
You know what, Andrew? It's a great question you're asking, because I've had guests on my podcast the last few days, and I've been playing this little game. If Trump were to lose, what do you think the analysis is, and vice versa? I think it's going to be really interesting what the media and the left use as the excuse. One, do they claim, well, it was China or Iran or North Korea or Russia? They already used the Russia hoax, so I don't know that they can use that twice. Um, but I think that it's going to be someone. There's no way that this possibly could have happened. So who do we blame for this? Then they're going to blame Biden. Then they'll blame Harris. And then I think you're going to see the progressive wing of the party, the Bernie Sanders, the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, saying that she just wasn't progressive enough and that they need to tack further to the left. I mean, I will be fascinated to see how this. The real answer is they lost touch with the American people. The American people don't want open borders. They don't want to be told that it's price gouging, not the policies of the left that are causing massive inflation throughout our country, still affecting the cost of everyday goods for so many Americans. So I will be interested to see whether they even try to come up with a real reason why this didn't work, or whether they just make excuses for themselves and move on.
Well, I think, Sean, that if everything goes well, I mean, barring international crises, barring some unforeseen scandal, all that kind of stuff. But Trump's win puts the Republicans in line for 12 years now in the White House. Trump can only serve this one more term, having already been president once. That sets up the man who's going to be his vice president, J.D. Vance, who I think was the most impressive performer of the four candidates, the two presidential and two vice presidential. And he could and should then win 2 terms himself as president. This is a golden time potentially for the Republicans.
It is because J.D. Vance, you've got Trump. He'll bring in the America First agenda, and I think really have a different focus than he did that first term. But then J.D. Vance, he just turned 40, 2 months ago. He's going to bring a youthfulness and a new generation perspective to this. So this is a perfect handoff of the baton, if you will, of the America First agenda to a younger generation, and he'll be ready to move forward. But I'm excited about not just what President Trump will do this first 4 years, but then this transition from Trump to Vance.
Now, Trump the dictator, now that was Harris's big claim, right? He's a Hitler fan, he's a tyrant, his democracy is under threat. The media ran with that too, most of it. Trump is now going to prove that is a lie. He won't be a dictator. That's going to expose a lot of people. Do you expect some serious soul searching in the Democrats or in the media? Because people aren't going to buy this kind of rubbish second time round.
I hope not. I think, as I said, the Democratic Party, it will be interesting to see whether or not it's real or not. I was at the Republican National Committee when in 2012, after we lost, we did a lot of soul searching. We looked at how we did business as a party and said, what can we do better to win? And I think despite some of the media misinterpretation as to what that report looked like, we talked about outsourcing and better utilizing third-party organizations to do a lot of the mechanical and logistic thing. I think that paid off. Think about what's going on now in terms of the ground game. But secondly, you bring up the media. I was there in 2016 after the election when senior executives from NBC News admitted that they missed it and said that they were going to correct it. I don't think they will. I think they had a chance to do it after Donald Trump won in 2016, even after the election was close in 2020. They've doubled down on stupid. And I don't think that this election is going to be any different. I think they'll make excuses, but they don't want to. They don't like Donald Trump. They hate Donald Trump. They hate people who support Donald Trump. You saw that in the coverage leading up to them. There's no way that all these people who went all in, basically spreading misinformation about where the race stood and the support that Donald Trump have, are suddenly going to have a come to Jesus moment tomorrow. Not going to happen.
I would have thought they'd be ashamed of misreading the electorate so badly.
Oh, no. But anyway, they're not ashamed.
Me.
They'll come up with an excuse. They'll come up with it. They're not ashamed of it. They have no shame. They literally will wake up tomorrow and make an excuse up. And again, I think they'll be the first to figure out some country or outside entity or Martians that flew down and influenced this election, because it wasn't them for certain.
Well, just finally, Sean, we've talked about this before. Donald Trump, let's face it, he has got an ego. He's got a lot to be egotistical about, even now, particularly now, I would have thought. But self-willed and all that, and you give him advice and he can just trample all over it. And, a lot of unforced errors in this campaign as well. I don't think the election should have been as close as it was. But how do you think this win then is going to change Donald Trump?
Andrew, this is a good question because I think that he may think about his legacy. How do I want to go down in history? And this could be an opportunity. I don't know. I think we've seen Donald Trump. I don't think you're going to see that much different. But I think that there's a point at which we all. I mean, look, he had to come. He had his own brush with death when that assassination attempt merely, almost took his life. And I think now winning in the way that he did, there's an effect that it has on people to think about their legacy. And so hopefully he stops and says, okay, how can I govern maybe a little differently? Not that I want him to do. I'm just saying that I think that there's always a moment of reflection, and he's going to have plenty of time between now and January 20th to do that.
I think there's no more big battles for him to win. He can't be president another time after this. And so maybe, I think you're right. I think you will be tempted to look at his legacy instead, not belting someone to the canvas. But we shall see. Sean Spicer, you've called this brilliantly over the journey. We'll see you again next week, but thank you so much for your analysis tonight.